we will be introducing a resolution. The resolution will ask our federal congressional delegation to stop passage of the federal health care bill, and it will ask our Attorney General to file a lawsuit to protect the residents of the state of Minnesota and the state of Minnesota against the encroachment on our constitutional rights as residents of the state and the state of Minnesota. The 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution reserves for the states all powers of government not specifically enumerated in the Constitution and reserved for Congress. There are two really important balancing acts for Congress. The first is a separation of powers. We expect our federal government to control itself through the separation of powers, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. But there's also a really great premise in our government. It's the premise of divided government, where the state government has its rights and can control the federal government when it's overreaching. And with the federal health care bill, the federal government is proposing unconstitutional actions. And let me explain what those unconstitutional actions are. There are two. The first one, there may be others, but there are at least two. The first one is the violation of the Commerce Clause. The U.S. Constitution provides our Congress the authority to regulate commerce, but it is a limited, enumerated right to regulate commerce. It's interstate commerce, it's economic activity that they have the right to regulate. In this case, they are seeking to regulate non-economic inactivity, the right to choose not to buy health care. The individual mandate in the health care bill would mandate every resident in the state of Minnesota to buy health insurance or to pay what they call a shared responsibility penalty or a tax that will be assigned to every person if we fail to have a minimum level of health insurance coverage for more than 1 month. So the first part is the Commerce Clause. They have overreached the use of the Commerce Clause. If you go through Supreme Court authority, it clearly shows that there's no support for this use of the Commerce Clause to force someone to buy something. In the Congressional Budget Office in 1994, when President Clinton had universal health care proposals, let everyone know in Congress through their report that the Commerce Clause could not be used and has never been used to force someone to buy anything. Similarly, just last year, the Congressional Research Service for our U.S. Congress also challenged the same thing and questioned whether the Commerce Clause could be used in that way. So we have all kinds of authority to our federal congressional delegation to say, don't support this bill, stop the passage. The second unconstitutional provision is that shared responsibility penalty. It's really a tax. And under the federal Constitution, it's essentially a capitation tax. It's a per-person tax. That per-person tax, if Congress wants to levy one, has very strict criteria in the Constitution. And if you look at Article 1, I think it's Section 8, it specifically says that it must be levied proportionally across all states and based upon the census. But because the health care bill sets up all kinds of exemptions, it can't possibly meet the constitutional criteria to make sure that the burden on a Minnesotan would be the same as a burden on a Californian, because the exemptions will apply unequally. And when we have the census, we've actually carved out some exceptions. For instance, illegal immigrants will be counted in our census, but they will be exempt from the application of this bill. So if California has a higher population of illegal immigrants, they will have a disproportionate impact to the total tax paid by the residents of the state. So it fails as soon as the tax is implemented. There are many reasons to be against this bill, but those are the two primary ones that I think we need to talk about in the Senate immediately. We all swore an oath of office. It's the same for senators and House members as it is for the governor and the Attorney General. Our highest duty is fidelity to the U.S. Constitution. It's the first thing we swear to do is to support the Constitution. And so we need to have a conversation in the Minnesota State Senate. We hope to do that tomorrow. I'm going to ask for a debate tomorrow and ask that we talk about how we protect our 10th Amendment rights as a state. And I hope that the Minnesota Senate will support that and have that debate. The public is just dying for one. The recent news is that they're not planning a vote on the health care bill in Congress. They expect to pass it on a procedural vote, which is an even greater challenge and another reason why the state of Minnesota needs to step up and have that debate speak to the issue.